And then Sterling K. Brown, who Barbara has a crush on, I think. Look at her turning pink.
We were swooning over all these men. Honestly, it was so great to have,
it was great.
you know, the combination of Raza and Jude and Sterling. So it was fun
really
for
special.
us, wasn't it?
We have a few other great actors in this. Nafi.
And we had Richard Brake.
Brake, the Night King from Game of Thrones. Come on. Everybody, like, it was really, he's great in this movie. He's all that. I cannot believe I got to fight the Night King. It's just like the most important thing that's ever happened to me.
I think that what matters most to me as a fan is that the essence and the spirit of the people that I fell in love with are the people. Like, if the wall is green and lily blooms, but our wall is purple, it doesn't really matter. Like, if I'm a book reader, it's that the people I fell in love with, that the stories I fell in love with, that the journeys I fell in love with, that grabbed my heart and soul, end up on screen. I really think that they do, and
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. You know that a narcissist is suing someone when they are constantly filing motions in court and making the other side appear dangerous, deranged, unhinged, a threat to humanity, and someone that is going to cause grave harm to them and the world. And that's exactly the portrait that Blake Lively would want the world to believe Wayfarer is, which using motions and divisive language to try to control a narrative that they know is going to be incredibly public. They're utilizing these letter motions in order to get things up before the judge faster. I've never seen a case use so many motions letters this way, and the reason they're doing it is because it gets it to the judge faster than actually filing a motion. So they're sending motions through a letter. And then through these letters, they're trying to make it seem like Wayfarer and Justin are these really dangerous people sending all these really awful threats, and nobody wants to help them and be public because of the backlash and the terrible behavior that's happening online that is a direct result of Wayfarer and Wayfarer only, not the actions of Blake and Ryan Reynolds. Okay. So they're seeking this like multi-layered protective order. They only want attorneys to be able to see certain documents and certain confidential information. They want certain parties to be completely protected because they feel like if Justin and the group find out who these people are, somehow their lives are going to be in danger, which is ridiculous, asinine, and just, again, another way to control the narrative and smear Justin. So their team is objecting to this kind of protective order. And the reason why they are, listen, given how actively the Lively parties have publicized and litigated Miss Lively's claims in the media, we're surprised to now learn how vehemently she wants to prevent the public from accessing material and relevant evidence. The Lively parties provided the New York Times with Miss Lively's otherwise confidential administrative complaint filed with the California Civil Rights Department and thousands of pages of original documents, including text messages and emails. See Megan Twohey from It Ends With Us, actor and director, and his publicist sue the Times for libel. So she wants everything to be private. If she's the one, it's fine, but they can't. She gave New York Times access to everything, and yet now she wants it to be private. Miss Lively's counsel and spokesperson routinely attempted to rehabilitate her tarnished image with bold statements to the press, such as characterizing the Wayfarer Party's complaint as another chapter in the abuse playbook, e.g. Blake Lively on Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, which is referencing a Hollywood Reporter article, or trying to convince the press that her amended complaint saves her meritless claims by referencing other purported victims, although she fails to name a single one, which, as you know, outlets then started pulling up and saying Blake Lively's amended complaint claims Justin Baldoni made other women uncomfortable on the set, but yet named no other females. And to be clear, no other women are coming forward to sue him. And if no other women are filing suit against him, nothing they say he will be liable for. Okay. Worst of all, in a planned skit on NBC's Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary special, which attracted almost 15 million viewers, Miss Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, stood up and made a joke about her claims for sexual harassment and emotional distress. In any event, given the order directing the parties to submit proposed protective orders, the Wayfarer parties have no objection of entry of the court's model protective order. However, Lively's proposed protective order or any protective order permitting attorney's eyes only designation is not warranted. Although the Lively parties contend that the ability to designate information AEO is appropriate because the litigation involves claims of SH in the workplace, Ms. Lively has already publicized the alleged details of the so-called H in the amended complaint, spanning 138 page and almost 500 paragraphs. Therefore, Ms. Lively lacks a good faith belief that there is any information of such personally sensitive nature that disclosure thereof the parties would unnecessarily violate her privacy rights, because she's already detailed in her complaint what she says happened to her, and there was corroborating witnesses and video taken that between all of these interactions or documents to prove it. It is hard to claim that now she needs privacy for this. Furthermore, any legitimate concern the parties have concerning the disclosure of highly sensitive personal information can be addressed under procedures contained in the court's model protective order. So they're basically just saying she's the one that started this. She's the one that put this out. They're noting that Ryan Reynolds, who wants a protective order, went on to a show and made a joke about the claims, which was stupid. And I told you that they would bring this up in the court. And I don't know if they're, they want full transparency, which I recognize. Like, if you have nothing to hide, hide nothing. So this group is saying we have nothing to hide. We'll put it all out there. On the one hand, she's ridiculing them for saying you aren't giving me your phone records. But on the other hand, when they say we don't want to give you stuff that has nothing to do with this case, they're saying, well, you said you wanted to show the receipts, and now they have the opportunity to show receipts and they don't want to. It's the contradiction of the narcissist in litigation. Attorney's eyes only isn't a super uncommon designation to request, especially with high profile cases or involving public figures. This is a designation I have been dealing with for the last 3 years in a lawsuit that was filed against me by Robert Shin, who was the pastor featured in the Netflix docuseries Dancing for the Devil, the 7M TikTok cult. So I'm familiar with these attorney eyes only layers of protective orders because we have one in mind, but I'm also familiar with why it was requested and how they framed me as someone that was dangerous and an existential threat and someone that was going to dox and harass, and they accused me of harassing and putting their lives in danger too. So I've been where Justin is. I know what it's like to be sued by a narcissist. I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of a smear campaign. I know how narcissists use and abuse the litigation process and file motions and make constant demands. And it's like a never-ending filing cycle of wanting more and wanting less and fighting and fighting and fighting. And then you get to discovery and they want to give you nothing. And then even when you get the protective order, they still don't comply. The discovery is going to be so hard for them because even if they get what they want, they'll still find a way to not give them what they want. That's what narcissists do, in my opinion. My lawsuit will hopefully be adjudicated with a summary judgment soon, but in this case, I don't know if they'll go to the summary judgment level, if it'll get dismissed, if they'll go to settlement, but I don't see either side settling at this time. Naturally, this is all about litigating this in the press. They want to try to clean up her reputation and make it appear like, there's truly a threat here with Wayfarer, and I just don't believe it. That's why they're trying to make it seem like Steve is this unhinged dude that's talking about Israel and Hamas. And they're only putting that out there to inflame people to believe that Wayfarer is dangerous. So obviously, Miss Lively hates it that her name is brought up in anything, and they filed a response this afternoon. And again, these types of motions and letters and filing the same day is not normal. This is all about PR still and trying to get their story to the press. And these letters are written like it's directly to the press. They take issue, and this is how they twist words. So remember how we did a video a couple days ago and I showed you how it was about consent, and Justin was talking in a video about how consent works and how he struggled with understanding what it meant, and they're weaponizing that against him. They're now weaponizing statements that Brian Friedman made that are relatively innocuous and not even threatening to make it seem like it's a threat. So they said, Counsel for the Wayfarer parties recently publicly stated in an interview with TMZ that Wayfarer, Justin, and their representatives have no ill will nor vendetta against anyone who speaks up in any circumstance, and have firsthand experience with and empathy for the struggles of going against incredibly powerful individuals in pursuit of truth. So they're just simply saying that they would not retaliate against anyone. And so this idea that Blake needs to make people anonymous is nonsense because they're not going to hurt anyone. They're using this to say that the moving parties respectfully suggest that Wayfarer parties can actualize those professed goals that facilitate the pursuit of truth and to empower third parties, including victims of SH, to stand up to incredibly powerful individuals by providing third parties with a way to ensure that their personal and sensitive information is accessible only to attorneys who are bound by the rules and ethics of the court and legal profession. Given the unrebutted, defined, specific, and serious injury at stake, there is good cause to permit parties and third parties to rely on an AEO designation in the first instance, while allowing any party to object to any such designations as the model and proposed PO contemplate. So they want to be able to protect these third parties because nobody's come forward. And they are trying to say that the only way these people would ever come forward in a lawsuit is if they're confidential. And that's just not how lawsuits work. You don't get to be a Jane Doe if in cases like this. You just don't. This isn't children. They aren't children. They're adults. And if there were serious claims that were going to be made, they would have been made, but they weren't. And again, using this language like defined, specific, serious injury, it's asinine. And again, they're the ones saying that they're going to be, those people that are coming forward are going to be standing up against powerful individuals, i.e. Wayfarer. Come on. They also argue that Miss Lively lacks a good faith belief that there is any information that would violate her privacy rights because she has chosen to file a lawsuit detailing her so-called harassment. Opposition at 2, Miss Lively attempted to resolve her concerns about an unsafe work environment privately and directly with Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Wayfarer, and others, and only filed a legal complaint after the defendants launched their retaliatory smear campaign detailed in the amended complaint. So you have to recognize that they would never have sued unless they had this smear campaign angle. So their only reason for suing isn't because of sexual harassment. They want their reputation to stop being damaged. And they think that all of this is coming from Wayfarer, and it's not. Leaving aside the callous disregard and disrespect for a woman advocating for the basic workplace protections against SH, the Wayfarer Party's interest shows the futility of future conferral. It isn't discounting the safety of women. This is, again, her weaponizing it against women. The inevitable byproduct of the Wayfarer position will be a massive waste of party judicial resources as parties and potentially third parties seek to convince counsel for the Wayfarer parties that women do not forfeit all of their privacy interests simply because they have spoken out or intend to speak out against the parties. They're basically throwing crap at a wall and hoping it sticks. It's a lot of just word salad. Blake is already a public figure. She's already made this argument public. She freaking ran to the New York Times, and now she's trying to act like she didn't start this. She didn't light the match and start the fire that's been blazing on for a month. An argument that appears to have been included with a different audience in mind, the Wayfarer parties opened their opposition by bashing Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds for requesting the entry of a protective order to shield from public view documents and information exchanged herein. They are saying that they're bashing them in a letter to the court. This is how sensitive Ryan and Blake are. This is the bash. Blake Lively and concerning their request for entry of a protective order to shield from public view documents and information exchanged herein. And then here's the bash. Given how actively the Lively parties have publicized and litigated Miss Lively claims in the media, we're surprised to now learn how vehemently she wants to prevent the public from accessing materials and relevant evidence. That doesn't sound like an attack or a bash, and that's how sensitive they are to any level of criticism. That's what these people are up against. You know what I've noticed in all of this, though? They're not denying that she's the one that gave this crap to the New York Times. Have you seen them deny in any of this that they've come out and spoken out? No, they said, "Oh, you can't penalize us for speaking out. You can't do that. So you're admitting you gave this to the New York Times. You're admitting that you did this publicly. You're not denying it. You're admitting it, which is weird because you denied it before." But what is most deranged and unhinged about this whole thing, these types of motions are generally very boring, and they're trying to make everything super salacious, which is wild to me because a lot of this is just procedural crap that shouldn't even be a headline. Because Blake and Ryan refuse to speak to the public, and when they do, they make jokes about it. They're using their lawyers to respond to the criticism that they're getting. Okay. And they're saying that they need to take advantage of and have these protective orders because certain online content creators who frequently parrot the Wayfarer Party's line, at least one of whom happens to be a client of Wayfarer's counsel, Brian Friedman, who's Perez Hilton. Perez has not said anything derogatory. Come on now. I mean, he does say that she's almost 40 and he calls her Blake Scarlett Johansson's ex-husband's new wife. But that's also a fact, okay? But have used similar misleading accusations. And this is the headline. Blake Lively asked a judge for a stronger protective order to keep Justin Baldoni suit details privacy after receiving violent messages. That's actually what their request said. They said that given that they were receiving violent messages, it was important that people be protective. So I'm confused how that's the Wayfarer Party line when that's actually what their original request said. And then they quote Candace Owens, who said they are really trying to keep some evidence out of the public eye, it would seem. Are they not? And then they also quote another tweet that says, late last night, while we slept, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds filed a protective order. The guilty as sin couple is asking a judge to protect from the public some confidential documents and names gathered in the discovery process. So because Candace believes they're guilty, somehow that's parroting the Wayfarer Council. It's ridiculous. Predictably, media outlets picked up the same narrative. So they're acting again like these low-level influencers are like Perez and Candace and anyone with a mouth, apparently, are somehow influencing the Daily Mail and all these other major outlets to also pick up headlines, which is stupid. Everyone that's in and covering this case has a Pacer account and is reading the documents, and they're writing headlines to get clicks. And it's Blake's side that uses inflammatory language saying that she got violent threats and they want a protective order. None of this is actually the Wayfarer Council's party line. And one of the outlets that they're claiming says, Blake Lively seeking stronger protective order over violent messages amid Justin Baldoni case. That's what it says in hers. Her lawyer urged that some details of the case should be restricted to attorneys' eyes only in order to limit the amount of shocking headlines being generated by the case. The travels of the mischaracterized embraced by the opposition through manufactured echo chamber by itself provides ample justification for a protective order that establishes adequate protections for third-party privacy interests. Okay, so apparently Perez Hilton, Candace Owens, the Mirror, and every outlet that doesn't have a favorable headline and uses the words that they used in their protective order is on the side of Wayfarer. It's like they are now realizing that the fact that they blamed them for using divisive language, they're now trying to gaslight and redirect and say they're following Wayfarers. But just so you know, okay, nobody from Wayfarer talks about violent threats. This is the first, they initiated this on the 20th, okay? And they're the one that brought up the threats. So it says, good cause exists for the court to adopt the proposed PO. The court need not speculate whether a clearly defined specific serious injury will occur in the absence of proposed PO because a defined specific and serious injury already has occurred in absence of one. As detailed in her complaint, her family and other members of the cast and various fact witnesses and individuals that have spoken out publicly in support of Ms. Lively have received violent, profane, sexist, and threatening communications. Okay, so they want a proposed protective order, and they're telling the court they want one because they received violent threats. That came from them. And then they also expressed that someone received a threat that a witnessed family member should be essayed and unalived unless the witness agreed to make a statement and give the truth. And then they talked about how her Instagram got trolled. So they're the ones that bring up the threats. And now they're trying to say that content creators that repeat what is in their document, which references violent threats, are somehow working for Wayfarer. Do you see how that gaslighting worked? The mind scrambling and the word salad and the projection deflection and reverse perpetrator victim? Perez and all these other outlets are literally just reading what Blake Lively asked the court to do. And then somehow, if you do that, then you're supporting Wayfarer. Oh, God, I cannot with these people. This is how you know you're win litigation with a narcissist. That's it. That's all. And again, they admitted that they're the ones that leaked it to the New York Times because they didn't deny it. They had an opportunity in that letter to say, we didn't do that. And they didn't. Not one time. Whatever happens with the protective order, you guys, it's not that serious. Most of us won't even get to see a lot of this stuff that's in the lawsuit. We won't get to see a lot of the discovery. So it's seriously not that big of a deal. It's just, this is another way, in my opinion, for them to try to frame Wayfarer as dangerous, link unspecified communication that they're getting from probably trolls on the internet and link them to Wayfarer, which is asinine. And then again, try to reframe the narrative that they're the victims when they are probably not. They're actually victimizing Baldoni. And when Baldoni's team said that they wouldn't do the things that Blake is claiming they would do, then they're twisting that and saying that, oh my gosh, see, they're threatening people, which isn't what happened. You cannot win with a narcissist. My only issue with this type of level with attorney's eyes only is they're saying that anyone can come in, a third party, and request that anything they provide is attorney's eyes only. And then they say, well, if the other side objects, then they can do it through the court. What it does is it makes some third parties maybe not want to come forward, because if they do and they ask to have all of their information through attorney's eyes only, and then say Wayfarer or on Blake's side they object, then they have to go to the judge and say through motions, which is more money. These orders of protection, every time you object or have a fight about one, you then have to go to the court, which is then more money. It's just a way to control and litigate and drive up the costs of litigation, which is why Wayfarer is saying this is a frivolous lawsuit. They're accusing Wayfarer of trying to drive up the cost, and what they're actually proposing will drive up the cost and will actually probably cause people not to come forward, because if they do, if they object, they have to go to the court to object. These super high protective orders are a pain in the ass. And I know, because I'm dealing with one. So what are your thoughts about this? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.